Welcome to episode 68 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined live from the Vault Studio on the beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary by my good friend, my colleague, and the man who is ready for the school year to end. Wow. John Scott Sloat.
Aren't we all, though?
Yes, I think so.
Aren't we? Student and professor alike, even though, some professors won't admit it. I think everybody is.
What professors won't admit that?
I think that there's got to be some out there that revel in grading papers and, those sorts of things. They got to be out there.
Those people need help.
Yeah, I agree.
If we find them, we need to get them the appropriate help.
Yeah.
Yes. So what's going on with John Sloat these days?
Oh, my goodness. Baseball season's in full swing. Yard work's happening, and all of a sudden on the radar pops up 3 to 6 inches of snow this week. Did you see this?
Yes.
How am I supposed to grow grass?
Are we supposed to get actual accumulation, though?
I have no idea.
I mean,
I hope not.
Come on.
I just put the snowblower away.
Yeah. I buried mine in the back of the garage. So, yeah, I'm not ready for that. I just mowed my yard this weekend for the second time.
Same.
You have enough grass to mow yard?
I do. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It's patchy, but I have enough grass to mow. So
okay, that's good to know. Well, we would love to connect with you, our listeners. You can find us on Twitter at V&S Pod. You can find us through Facebook. You can find our page, Various and Sundry Podcast. Give us a like and a follow. You can email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. We do have a YouTube channel you can subscribe to, Various and Sundry Podcast. And last week's episode where we interviewed Zach from Ohio, there is actual video of that. That's an actual video episode.
Taped. No one uses tape, but digitally recorded episode that we did last week.
Yeah, isn't that funny that still is part of our vernacular, even though tape doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah. Who uses tape?
But I'm old enough to, when I went through my telecommunications degree, that I did video editing with tape. Like actual, it was not fun. Digital editing is a whole nother world. It's a much better world. If you'd like, you can go on to whatever podcast app you use and leave us a review and a rating. We'd appreciate that. And we do have an announcement for the Various and Sundry Podcast. We do.
Really?
What's
going on?
Cue the breaking news here.
Yeah.
So we have our next author interview coming up in a few weeks. We will have on the show Barnabas Piper.
Oh, that's exciting.
It is exciting, yes. So Barnabas Piper is the son of John Piper. But lest you think this is just somebody riding the coattails of his dad, Barnabas has distinguished himself as an author in his own right. He's written several books. I think he's at least written 4 now.
4 or 5, yeah.
So we are excited to have him on the podcast. He is also one of the co-hosts for one of our favorite podcasts.
Sure.
And one of the inspirations, I'd say, in fairness, for this podcast called the Happy Rant Podcast. So we're going to have him on in a few weeks. And you still have time, if you'd like, to send us questions. If there's questions you'd like us to ask, we will, of course, screen them and evaluate whether we will actually ask them. But
or we'll just come up with our own questions. That'll be.
I think we'll come up with our own. But if you have specific questions, we'd be happy to consider them. He's written a book on being a pastor's kid, on curiosity, what role curiosity plays in the Christian life, a book on doubt. And so, we're looking forward to our conversation with him. He's a guy that has a wide range of interests that overlap with ours to a large degree. So also a big sports fan. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
It'll be good.
Should be good.
Yes. So again, feel free to send in questions for Barnabas Piper. We will be interviewing him in a couple weeks. But all right, we should move on to what's going on in the world of sports here, John.
It's a slow time. We're in early baseball, and we're not yet late enough in the NBA for the games to really, really matter. So
we have some housekeeping affairs to take care of here, though, in the realm of sports here, right?
Well, are you talking about March Madness?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I guess we didn't tape an episode last week.
Right. And the week before the episode we recorded on the Monday of the championship game. So
that's right.
The championship game was set between Baylor and Gonzaga.
Yeah.
But we didn't know the result, obviously. So yes, Baylor put a whooping on Gonzaga. Just a dominant performance. And perhaps more importantly for our listeners is the bracket challenge.
Yeah.
You won.
I did. I've never won a bracket challenge before in my life.
And it just so happens that you organized this. So are we going to expect some conspiracy theories about bracket challenge fixing? Should we expect some lawsuits to be filed to challenge those results in court?
I mean, unless you can prove I have connections to the Yahoo family or whoever owns Yahoo, then sure. But I don't have such connections.
I mean, the deep state does have long tentacles, John.
Yeah. I don't even know what that sentence means. But
you did win. But I feel like we should still probably give some sort of prize to the next person who came in second, I guess, who's not a host of the podcast.
Sure,
I feel like that's doing a solid.
That's fair.
And that was Kevin J.
Kevin J.
So we're going to need to connect with Kevin J. You know who that is, don't you?
I believe so.
Okay,
yeah.
So we'll need to connect with him and see what book he'd like.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean we have a bunch of them. So
we do, yes. In fact, the room we're sitting in right now has the largest private collection of my books, I think, at least in the United States, maybe in the world.
Yeah, yeah. Although the Gospel Coalition last week gave it a run for its money, you had quite a few books there.
Yeah, that was nice. It was nice to see those out and at deeply discounted prices.
Yeah,
so
but we'll talk more about that in a minute.
We will. So one other sports thing that happened was the Masters.
Oh yeah, the Masters happened.
Yeah. Did you watch much of that?
I turned it on for a few hours. Usually, I tune in on Sundays, and
right.
If it's close, really pay attention. It wasn't really that close, so I think I tuned away pretty quickly. But yeah, I tuned in for a little bit. I like watching the live streams of 15 and 16 and seeing those holes played, and that's always good. So.
Yeah, so Hideki Matsuyama was your winner.
Oh, yeah.
I believe the first Japanese man to win the
Masters.
I believe so. But
yeah.
he also – didn't he win it as like a junior like 10 years ago or something?
So they always honor the guy who, as the best amateur, plays.
Right.
And so he did the best amateur score
right.
at the Masters 10 years ago or something like
right.
that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that's what you're thinking of there.
Yes. Yep. So, yeah.
And he's always been a good player, consistent.
Mm-hmm.
So good. I like guys that have been around for a while, have really worked at the craft, and to see him win was good. I just wish he had somebody challenging him a little bit.
Yeah, he got out to I think he had like a 4 or 5 shot lead going into Sunday.
Yeah, and I think it got as close as 2, but
yes. Yeah, and the guy that was playing with him in the final group, I forget who it was now, had a chance because Matsuyama bogeyed one of the holes, or no, double bogeyed, I think. And then that put it within like 2.
Yeah.
And then like the very next hole, the guy playing with him ended up like triple bogeying and just blowing up. So anyway, even if you're not a golf fan, sometimes the drama of that back nine on the Masters on Sunday is really entertaining. So
and the whole location on 16, the par 3.
Classic, yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's iconic.
Yeah, you put it down at the bottom of that hill there, and so you see
and just watch the balls funnel to it. Yeah,
you see guys hit it up high on the slope, and then just watch it funnel down there. And
oh yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about your Mets. We'll get to your Knicks, but let's quick Mets update.
Yeah,
they've played a game by now, right? I mean, they had a rough start to the season with
the COVID cancellation. Well, okay, so part of that is they've had more canceled games than any other team in the majors at this point.
Okay.
So they've had a little over half of their games canceled by either rain, COVID, snow in Colorado.
Okay, yeah.
And they're supposed to play tomorrow, Tuesday, so when this drops today, in Chicago. And the word is that that's going to be snowed out as well. Wow. So there's that challenge to the start of the season. Hard to get consistent.
Yeah.
Our pitchers, though, our top three pitchers have a combined ERA of like 1.4 right now. So Jacob deGrom Saturday at the front end of a doubleheader struck out 9 in a row at one point during the game and ended up winning the game. It was a great game. And then Marcus Stroman over the weekend also threw a one-run game. So the starting pitching has been really, really good for us.
And remind me quickly, I think this has happened since we last recorded an episode for on a regular schedule here. There was some walk-off ending to a Mets game that had Nate from Ohio worked up, and he texted us.
Oh, yeah.
But remind me how that game ended. It was some bizarre way that the game ended.
So, yeah, it was against oh, my goodness. It was against the Marlins. And the Marlins were up a run, and then in the bottom of the ninth, we were able to tie the game. So it was like 3-3. The bases were loaded. There was one out, I believe, and Michael Conforto, who's up for a big contract this offseason, was at the plate, left-hander, and just was in a huge slump, like couldn't hit the ball. And so the count got full. He fouled off a couple. It was nice to see him make contact at least. And a curveball was coming in and started at him and then moved over the plate.
Sure.
And he got nicked on the elbow, but upon review, he clearly leaned into it a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And it was a strike. And so if it's a strike, it's not supposed to matter. It's just a strike. It doesn't matter if you get hit. You shouldn't be in the strike zone.
Right.
However, the ump missed that rule, came out and said, yeah, I screwed that up. Let him take first. Everybody moves around. It was a walk-off hit by pitch that never should have been a hit by pitch.
Oh, Major League Baseball. Sometimes it can't get out of its own way.
Yes. It was a fascinating ending, and then to hear the scorn toward Michael Conforto was wild.
Yeah.
Over the airwaves, but
yeah,
that they won that game. They've won. I think they're 8-4 right now, so they've played 12 games. So they're in first place, which I'm really excited about. So they're on a 100-game pace right now. So we'll see what they do the rest of the year.
And your Knicks are on a bit of a streak here.
Yeah, 6 or 7 in a row. So they've seemed to be playing well. They're 6th in the East, which is really exciting. So hopefully we make the playoffs this year. It's still, I think, pretty tight.
Yeah, it's really bunched up there in the East.
I think there's the top 3 maybe, and then everybody else. Although Kevin Durant went down with a big injury yesterday.
But wasn't it just like a thigh contusion, I think? Like it's a bruise. Like it wasn't any structural damage from what I understand. So in any case, I did catch a little bit of the Knicks. I caught most of the second half. I caught like the last 2 minutes of the first half and then the second half and then overtime of the Knicks-Pelicans game. And I was impressed by Julius Randle. It's been a while since I've seen him. He looks like he's continued to improve his game from his Laker days. And but the Knicks caught a break because that game should have never gone to overtime. The Knicks should have lost that in regulation.
Oh yeah,
did you not see this?
No.
Okay. So Pelicans up 3, under. So Knicks inbound the ball get the ball with 7 seconds or so, 7-8 seconds, and of course, there's the eternal debate: do you foul or do you not foul?
Sure.
And they choose not to. And Derrick Rose breaks down his guy off the dribble, and since everyone else is out around the 3-point line, has a clear lane to the basket, but they're they're down 3. So you got to have a 3. The 2 does you nothing. For some unexplainable reason, Lonzo Ball, the Pelicans, takes a step towards the paint and leaves. What's the Knicks? His last name begins with a B. Is their good one of their good 3-point shooters?
My goodness.
Anyway, Booker. It's not Booker. It's something like that. Anyway, he leaves. So he takes a step, and then of course Rose dishes it. Guy knocks down the 3, goes to overtime, and then the Knicks win. So, just a terrible defensive lapse by Lonzo Ball.
That sounds great to me. Yeah.
Yeah. On to more significant things. This the main thing we're going to talk about today is just kind of a debrief from the Gospel Coalition conference that we were at last week. So, John, let's start with what is the Gospel Coalition?
Yeah. So, the Gospel Coalition is, goodness, it's a little hard to describe. It's more than a conference. Mm-hmm. It's certainly a movement of people who have organized themselves around certain ideas and principles and say, we're for these things. We want to talk about these things. We want to be about these things. And sort of, I would say the organizing principle is the gospel itself. And so we put some doctrinal differences aside and go join this group of people. And so every 2 years they have a national conference.
Yep.
And so we've gone for the last several years, except for the Orlando exile years where they were.
There were 2 conferences in Orlando, which I think they must have gotten some great deal on the convention center down in Orlando. But I'm glad to see they're back in the Midwest. So they're in Indianapolis the last 2 or 3 now, I think.
Yeah, I think this was the 3rd one. Yeah.
So that conference was in downtown Indy, which is 2.5 hours from us here.
Sure, and it was started by D.A. Carson and Tim Keller.
Yep,
and they have since passed it on to a man named Julius
Kim.
And seems to be doing really well. They have a pretty successful website. A number of blogs, so they do quite a bit.
Yeah, they're cranking out lots of materials. They're in one sense coalition really is the right term for them. Mm-hmm. So every other year they do one of these national conferences. So let's just start with general impressions. Like, what was it like to go to a conference again?
Exhilarating. I was a little nervous that we would have long lines in the mornings. We had to do temperature checks. We had to do symptom checks every morning. And then you got a text to your phone. You'd show it to whoever was at the front gate. The security guard was pretty intense.
One in particular.
Yeah, was very intense. And just his look, not in his actions towards people, but just his look.
Like he was screening for potential terrorist activity.
Yeah, like I know someone's trying to smuggle in a bomb or something.
Yes.
That was sort of the look he had.
He's gotten the intel from the FBI that
But everything was really smooth. Getting that daily bracelet on was really no big deal. And things were it ran smoothly.
Yeah, major props that in light of COVID and all that sort of stuff, it was a phenomenally well run conference. Mm-hmm. They made it it's hard for me to envision it being any easier or user friendly, so to speak, than it was.
Sure.
So that was impressive. And I think, didn't they say there were about 2,500 people?
I think 2,500 was the right
in
number,
person,
which is about half, I think, of what we.
A little less than half, I think, probably. Yeah. So that was good. Just the general conference experience was well done by them. And I will say, wasn't it a little disorienting though? Like you're kind of out of practice of the conference routine, right? Just being around that many people. Like I'm not a person who's nervous about that or anything, but it's just when you haven't done it for a while, it's like, wow, there's a lot of people here. And then seeing people gathering in rooms and still being socially distanced-ish in some ways. But yeah, props to them. So, John, what are some highlights?
Well, I mean, it seems as though Grace Seminary had a booth at the Gospel College. They definitely had a booth, and it seems like things went well.
Yeah.
It seems like we got a lot of names. People stopping by, thanking us for our ministry as a seminary, ministry as a college. All that seemed to be going really well. I had staff members at Grace's parents stopping by and saying, "Hey, my son works at Grace," this or that, and that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just, I mean, it was. Yeah, it just felt like we had a lot of momentum as a seminary there. That was pretty awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to Rob Newfer and Gabe Tribbett in particular for their hard work in manning the booth and having conversations. It felt like about every time I walked by there, there was someone, and often more than one person, finding out more about our programs and degree offerings and that sort of stuff. So that was good. But yeah. I know for me, and I know you share this, but probably one of the biggest highlights was just connecting with friends.
Yeah.
It was great to go down together, and we were joined by Brent, our Dean of Chapel here on campus. Went down for that. So had a nice Airbnb that was like 2 blocks away from the convention center.
Yeah, and had a pool table. So yeah. I know Brent and I played some pool. Did you and Brent play any pool after I left?
I played a little bit while I was waiting for him at one point.
Okay.
So not any like serious billiards, but yeah.
Okay.
And fun to connect with friends that I don't get to see very often.
Yeah. It was honestly, it was a lot of fun for Brent and I to be a fly on the wall for your connections with some of the people you know from your Wheaton PhD days.
Yeah. So in particular, I got to hang out with Ben Glad.
Yeah.
Good friend from Wheaton PhD program. We've co-written a book, Making All Things New, and then also getting to hang out with G.K. Beale.
Yeah, he showed up at one point.
Yeah.
I know you guys did dinner with after I left. I left early to
Right.
go teach, but you guys got to hang out with him one night for dinner. He just showed up in the evening one night.
Yeah, well, we kind of went out for a fourth meal kind of thing,
yeah.
where we went to a local establishment and had some fish and chips, a whole series of appetizers and that kind of thing. So, and he showed up and regaled us with tales of weal and woe.
Told us about his move to Texas as
Yes,
well.
yeah. He's finishing out his year at Westminster in Philadelphia and then moving down to RTS Dallas. And so – and then the next night after you had left, we went out to dinner back to that same Mexican place that we went the first
Oh, really?
night. Yeah. Because that's where Beale wanted to go. And it was quite fun. He's an intense person.
Yeah.
But loves to relive some of those days at Wheaton when we were there together. And we may or may not be putting something together in the works to bring him to campus.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what happens when you have the Dean of Chapel there, you know?
Yes, it does. Yeah. He's the mover and the shaker. He's the one with the purse strings to make that happen.
Yeah,
So,
it's an interesting relationship because Brent is a dear friend, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to go to those things like and not be the person. This guy, you got to get this guy for chapel.
Yeah.
This guy, and so I just try to take a sort of like, And Brent, what do you think of this guy? Well, I think he'd probably be pretty good. This or that, or I could see him doing this. I could see him doing that, and without you don't want to be the guy that's constantly coming to the Dean of Chapel. Oh my gosh, this guy.
Yep. So that was good. Just connecting with friends. That's one of the best parts of conferences in general.
Mm-hmm.
The content is good, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But just getting to see friends, and especially in person. Zoom has been a nice kind of backup technology that's allowed us to do a lot of things that
Sure.
15 years ago we couldn't have done in a pandemic, but doesn't compare to the in-person kind of interaction.
And I think that's one of my highlights, just the energy that comes from being at an in-person conference. That it's hard to beat. It's hard to do on Zoom. So I have a number of conferences that are like, hey, we can do this a lot cheaper if we do it on Zoom, and we can get a lot more people. True, but you can't get that same person-to-person interaction.
I just don't think that's going to be long-term sustainable.
No, I don't think so either.
I mean, I think it could be a both and, where you're going to offer conferences in person and then charge for live stream access, which that's been going on before COVID. You had situations like that where I think even Gospel Coalition would allow you to.
Yeah.
Like I know a couple of years ago for the Gospel Coalition Women's Conference, my wife hosted like a watch party for some of the sessions in our basement. So it happens, and I think that's going to be the model moving forward. You just cannot replace the informal, casual conversations that happen as you're walking through the book area and just bumping into people in the hallways and catching up. So it's impossible to replicate that in a virtual environment.
Yeah. One of my favorite moments at the conference was I was in the bookstore, I think with you and Ben Glad, and there was a woman looking at Ben Glad's book, and he's like, "Oh man, that's great. That's a great book."
Yes.
And he goes, number of words. He spouts out the number of words, number of pictures, all these things in the book. And she goes, "You wouldn't happen to be Ben Glad?" He goes, Yes, I am.
Yes.
And she goes, "Wait, really?"
Yep. So, let's talk about any of the content that stood out to you. An overwhelming amount.
Sure.
I don't know how anyone could actually sit through all of the main sessions plus go to all the breakouts. Like that just would be content overload.
Yeah. Some of the stuff I really enjoyed. They were working through the book of Hebrews in the main session. So they were preaching through Hebrews. And Kevin DeYoung kicked things off, and he was really, really good, really, really clear. I thought really, really helpful. And as soon as the conference media becomes available, should be something you go check out.
Yeah, I agree. I think his was one of my favorites. Other highlights for me in terms of the main sessions were Don Carson is always good.
Yeah.
Always enjoy listening to him. Clearly, like you can tell he's aging. He's slowing down a little bit, but still sharp as it. I mean, he's his like lost a step or two is like a million steps ahead of just about everybody else. So, but really enjoyable to hear from him. He got to talk about Jesus' priesthood and kind of brought me back to, you remember this.
His Melchizedek talk? Yeah, a little bit. I noticed that was an adjacent
at a Gospel Coalition conference like 10 years ago. Maybe your first Gospel Coalition.
It was my
first
student. It was my first Gospel Coalition. 2011 maybe? That sound right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And so it was it was all about Christ in the Old Testament.
Yeah, that was a great conference.
It's a great conference. And I remember that his message title for that talk was "Getting Excited About Melchizedek."
I remember Tim Keller introducing him and like laughing about that sermon title.
Totally poking fun at Don. Yeah. And deservedly so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But Keller's probably one of the few people who can get away with that. Mm-hmm. So that just brought back some memories. And then this happened after you'd left, but David Platt's message was the last one at the conference, and it was really good on Hebrews 13, and I very much enjoyed that message on. Basically, it revolved around the twin themes of protecting your intimacy with Jesus and staying on mission, which, of course, is right in his wheelhouse.
Sure, yeah.
So, and he told he gave a great illustration in that message about his high school baseball playing days when he played on a terrible team. It's kind of fun to hear someone prominent like that make fun of their own, athletic inadequacies. Too often it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. You had a great basketball team, or and Platt was like, no, we were terrible. Like not winning a game all season, terrible, kind of bad. So, but it also fit his message. What about any breakout sessions that caught your attention?
Yeah, I got to go to a few of those. Probably the one that sticks out to me the most, and the one I'm most excited about. Often breakout sessions are based on a book or based on a blog post that they had done, or something like that. Isaac Adams, who is a pastor at Capitol Hill Baptist, just gave a talk on why is it so difficult to talk about racism, and that was a really, really good, really, really good talk. And he's coming out with a book similarly titled, and I think it comes out in January next year. So, very much looking forward to that book coming out. And that was one where I'm in the session with Brent, and Brent's like, "I'm going to go get my car." I was like, "Finally," my goodness. So that was really good.
Gotcha. Okay.
How about yourself?
Yeah, there were a few, but I think the one that stood out was Rebecca McLaughlin. She did one on basically the secular creed. And it's not just a rehash of a book she's written. It's related, but not a rehash. And it was a session about – I think we've all seen these signs in people's yards or on people's houses. In this house, we believe that, Black Lives Matter, women's rights are human rights, love is love. Like you've seen this, these sort of signs out. And she did a great job of just sort of talking through how do you engage people who have that kind of mentality and do it in a way that is faithful to the gospel, but winsome. And she's just a fantastic communicator. She lives here in the States, but she's British.
Oh,
always helps.
Yeah, always helps.
Started with a couple of Harry Potter analogies. And she would also be someone that I wouldn't mind having on campus here because I think she can talk about a wide variety of topics that would be helpful for our campus and our students.
Well, we know the Dean of Chapel.
There you go. We do.
Yeah.
We do. I think unless there's another highlight you were dying to hit, I think maybe we should touch on some books. Conferences are a great opportunity to pick up some books at deeply discounted rates. Sometimes they're giveaways. Sometimes they're just really affordable options there. So I'll start. I picked this up not as I probably plan to read this anytime soon, but more just to have it on the shelf when I need it. John Piper's book Providence, which is not about the city in Rhode Island. It is about God's providential rule over creation. And it is a 750-page tome. It qualifies as a tome, I think.
Yeah, it's got that – it's the maroon cover one, right? It's got that reddish maroon cover. Yeah.
Yep. So one of those that I think I want to pick that up and have that on my shelf. What about you? Anything that –
So two that I'm looking forward to. One is by Tim Keller – How to Win the West Again. I always find his thoughts on that stuff really, really interesting. And then the other one that I picked up at Ben Glad's recommendation, What About Evil by Scott Christensen, sort of an exploration of evil and God's providence. So that one's quite large as well, I think.
Yeah.
400 or 500 pages. But I had to – they ran out, so I had to order that one through the publisher there, and I got the same price and $1 shipping. So it should hopefully show up in the next week or so.
Okay, good deal. Let's see. I'll mention a couple others real quickly, and then and we can put links to these in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Tom Schreiner came out with a second edition of his First and Second Peter and Jude commentary. The first edition was amazing. So I'm sure the second edition is going to be just as good. And Randy Newman, a friend of mine, has written a couple of great books on evangelism. his initial one was called Questioning Evangelism, not like doubting it, but using questions in evangelism to facilitate good conversations. And he's come out with a second edition of that. He'd be another guy that we could consider bringing onto the podcast to talk about evangelism. He is a great guy. He is a Messianic Jewish believer. So and he has a phenomenal sense of humor. You remember when he came – were you here when he came to visit?
I don't believe I was.
Lake?
No,
okay.
no.
He's been here at Grace and spoke at our church. So it'd be good to consider that. And then I mentioned Rebecca McLaughlin. She has a book called The Secular Creed, which is worth checking out. And then Kevin DeYoung just had a book come out on men and women in the church. That's a good discussion of complementarianism and what that looks like. So any last thoughts about Gospel Coalition?
The only thought I have is that conference media should be coming out in the next couple of weeks, so you should go check it out.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works. I know that I think that those who registered for the conference might have exclusive access to that for a period of time before it goes public.
Okay.
But in any case, worth keeping tabs on for sure. All right, this is episode 68, so we need an athlete, John.
Yeah. Let's run through our list here. Do you want me to read off this list here?
Well, why don't you do the professional athletes, then I'll handle the Ohio State guys.
Okay. So Jaromir Jagr.
Jaromir Jagr, yeah. What a name.
Yeah, good name. Good Russian, I believe.
That I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not a hockey guy. So
he played in the NHL for what feels like forever and was a prolific goal scorer.
Yes. Yeah, second most points in league history behind Wayne Gretzky. I assume that includes goals and assists.
Yeah, goals and assists are points in hockey there. Albert Pujols apparently wore 68 in a spring training game or
I think a spring training season early in his years.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that really is going to count, but in any case. For Ohio State, we actually have three guys. We've got Jim Stillwagon, great name, defensive tackle, 68 to 70. LaCharles Bentley.
Good name.
Yeah, he played for the Saints and the Browns, and now I think he just recently took some position in the NFL office.
Oh, in New York City?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Taylor Decker was an offensive tackle from 2012 to 2015 and currently is still in the league, making lots of money as a tackle for the Lions.
Okay.
Who you got?
I mean, it seems like there's really only one choice here.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we got to go with Jaromir.
Jaromir Jagr.
Yeah. So, okay. On to one thing you liked.
Yeah. So this weekend I sat down on Saturday and was looking for something to watch and came across a very well done 4-part documentary called This Is a Robbery. And it is about this Boston art museum where several paintings were stolen St. Paddy's Day, 1990.
Okay.
And they go into all these theories about the mob or the mafia or the IRA coming in and trying to steal these as bargaining chips to get out of jail later. And so they stole, I think, 3 Rembrandts. One of them is Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee with Jesus and his disciples on their ship. Beautiful. But it's been missing since 1990. And at the end, they're like, we still have a $10 million prize for the people that give information that lead to the recovery of these things. I was hooked. I love mafia stuff, and I was absolutely hooked.
And where's this available?
Netflix.
Okay.
It is worth your time, and it's in 4 parts, so it's 4 episodes. And it's about this robbery in Boston in 1990.
Gotcha. All right. Good deal. For me, I have started listening to an audiobook called Mind Hunter. inside the FBI's elite serial crime unit. So basically, it's written by the guy who was part of establishing the part of the FBI that does the profiling of serial killers. So they, for many years, the FBI was just kind of like, we don't know what to do. And so using tools from psychology and just case records and stuff, beginning to get a sort of profile of what guys who do this are like, so they can help local authorities narrow their search maybe from just any random person to, okay, we think a guy like this is probably going to be, late 20s, skinny, social outcast, maybe lives with a parent. Now start searching. And, it's not 100% accurate always.
Sure.
But like there's enough times where it's proven helpful and like gotten them to the right person that it's become a whole department within the FBI now. And the guy that kind of helped start that is telling the story of how that came about.
Okay. I believe they made a Netflix TV series.
I think that's right. Yeah.
It's not for all audiences.
Yeah, I can't vouch for it because I haven't seen it. But it's they talk about going into prisons and interviewing serial killers.
Yeah, that's what the TV show is sort of from what I understand is based around.
And I just can't imagine the toll that takes on law enforcement. Mm-hmm. Like just in generally think about the toll that people who are in that field have to experience the dregs of human society oftentimes. Mm-hmm. But people who are especially focused on
the particularly heinous,
understanding and finding serial killers, just that can't be good for your health long term.
Yeah.
Well, on that cheery note, I think in light of the fact we've talked Knicks, we've talked Mets, we've talked Masters, we've talked Gospel Coalition, we've talked Jaromir Jagr, we've talked about crime. What is it about? What does this say about our interests that we both said something related to crime?
Interesting.
That we picked for something that we liked this week. We'll have to call in the mind hunter and have him evaluate us.
Well, I think I have my one thing for next week already picked out, so it will be another crime related thing. So just to
make sure you write it down.
Yes.
Yes. So I think we are ready to call mission accomplished.
I think so.
Yes. And so make sure if you have questions for Barnabas Piper, reach out to us. But all that's left to say at this point is until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.